So you've secured that coveted job in tech and you are able to negotiate working remotely. Congratulations. But I'm sure now you're wondering, what am I going to do to be able to stand out and still be effective and add value to this team as soon as possible? So in this video, I'm going to show you practical ways that you can stand out in your first 90 days so that you're able to get even increasing responsibilities over time. So let's get to it. So let me start by giving you my own quick story. So when COVID started, I was forced to start working remotely. Yes, I was in Singapore, but I had teams that I was managing that were in Vietnam and in Thailand. And though we had already worked together, we were starting a brand new initiative, which was a huge digital transformation. And it required us to really collaborate physically to be most efficient. And we couldn't because COVID had happened and everybody was essentially stuck in their own home. And that was a huge challenge that I had to deal with upfront in order to still be able to deliver on this huge initiative while also not being able to collaborate with people in person. So how did I go about that? It occurred to me very quickly that I had to really shift the way I was interacting with people. So normally in Asia, people tend to prefer face-to-face interactions. And if they don't see you, really, they will not be keen to answer that email that you send, however many times you remind them. And so I had to start finding these practical ways and create these in-person connections, one-on-one interactions with them, and have constant check-ins so that we can be able to still maintain the momentum that would have been otherwise simple to implement and achieve if we were to meet in person. So that is something that really made me realize that there are thousands and thousands and actually thousands of people out there in Africa and also in Asia who are dealing with the same situation. And I want to make sure that, when you're starting in these roles, which now have become very common, that you know how to navigate them and in a way that doesn't stress you or overwhelm you. And so let's start to talk about the practical things that you can do to ensure that you're successful in your remote role. So if you're somebody that's new on a team, there are things that will be things that you should definitely do, and there are also things that you should definitely not do, especially in your first 90 days. And the reason is because those first 90 days, people are still trying to assess you, still trying to place you, like, who is this person? What value do they bring to the table? Are they credible enough? Can we trust them? Can we be able to give them ownership of things and they can deliver as expected? And so in that time, people are actually assessing you as much as you're assessing them. So you want to make sure that you focus mostly on the things that, showcase your strengths and the value that you're adding to the team and to the project, and refrain from trying to show that, you are like the guru of things here and there. Because there'll be a time for that where you're going to be able to become the expert in the room and you'll be given the mic for you to drive everything, but not within those first crucial 90 days. So what are the do's and what are the don'ts? So let's start with the do's. So the first thing that we had to set up were team norms. What this means is, as a team, we came together and we really intentionally decided what our working hours would be, when we want to collaborate, when we're going to have our meetings, and who's going to lead what session. So if you're familiar with the agile way of working, we essentially spend the time to identify the different roles. We set up the delivery teams and we knew which stakeholders were going to interact with with the team and at what point and in what format. But we also agreed that, for example, because the team was located in different locations, we were looking to have a way to have an overlapping time frame. So if the teams are in Asia versus in the US versus in Europe, we identified there's some overlaps across 3-4 time zones, and that really helped us to identify about 6 hours that overlap, that we could be sure that if anybody scheduled a meeting within that time, that we will be able to collaborate and attend those meetings. The second thing that we did was to adhere to those ceremonies that we had scheduled. So we had daily huddles, we scheduled backlog grooming sessions, we did schedule sprint planning sessions, and then we also put in like sprint review and demo sessions, as well as a session to really do retrospective and identify any constraints that teams are running into. That proved to be very critical because it created some sense of normalcy and ways that people were able to adapt to in an easier way, and that helped the team to feel like they knew every day that what they were getting into and what they could expect without feeling overwhelmed. Another thing that we did was to identify dependencies and to find ways to manage them in an organized fashion. And so we would outline all the dependencies across different teams, and we would ensure that we're communicating those dependencies in a centralized way so that every person understands what is going on and what role they can play to address that dependency, remove constraints, and so forth. The other thing that was very useful was, especially for somebody who's joining as a new person, to have regular check-ins with either your direct manager, direct report manager, or the person who's the product manager in the delivery team. You want to have that connection with them and share the progress that you've made, because that helps them to get to know you, but also to see the value that you're providing. So another thing that is very helpful is to ensure that you're contributing in the discussions, especially as a new joiner. If you're going to be attending meetings, make sure that you understand the agenda of the meeting and the intended outcome, so that when you are participating in the discussion, that you are able to speak up and share your thoughts, share your suggestions and your opinions, because those are things that help the rest of the team members and the key decision makers in the meeting to understand the role you are playing and the value you're adding to the discussions. That way they can be able to tap on you in the future if a similar conversation is introduced or comes up somewhere else on a different topic or a different project. But make sure that you're speaking up. Do not attend a meeting and stay on mute the entire time. You might as well decline the meeting and watch the recorded meeting later. So ensure that you're maximizing those sessions and you're interacting so people can get to know you. You can also be able to showcase the value that you bring to the team and to the project. In terms of the don'ts, on the don't side, a couple things I will say. First, do not try to change the way things are working. You know, most of us are, when you join a new team, you're coming from a different role, a different company, or a different project where you actually liked the way things were being done in one way or another. And then when you come to this new team, you realize that maybe some of those best practices from other places that you were are not being applied here. And you feel the nudge to, force those ideas and push them so that they can be applied immediately. While that could be a good idea, but you want to ensure that the team actually has opened the door for you to make those suggestions. So if you rush into making suggestions before you're hearing them out, then they may not be able to take you seriously or take the idea seriously, and you may be able to, you end up like missing out. So it may be that thing of good idea, but maybe bad timing. So again, do not try to push any new ideas. Instead, focus on listening, asking questions, making your contributions on a very regular basis every time you're attending a session, but hold off from trying to make an overall change that is going to interrupt the way the team is working already. Another don't, another thing you should not do for sure, don't try to put people down in the teams that you're joining. You want to be collaborative by actually being curious and understanding what they're doing. You may be able to pinpoint some weaknesses either on an individual basis or on the team basis, but you want to refrain from calling those out up front, because that could also be perceived negatively, especially if the team doesn't know you, hasn't worked with you for a long time. So hold off onto those, and there'll be a time where you can share that feedback. Actually, when they solicit from you, you may be able to actually get them to proactively come to you and solicit it, and then you'll be able to have that opportunity to share that type of feedback. But take notes, but just refrain from pushing your ideas or trying to indicate the weaknesses of individuals or the team too quickly. Another don't is do not ignore the existing frameworks being used, as well as the cadence being followed by the teams. So if there is a cadence where there's report outs being produced, or there is some presentations and demos being conducted, do not ignore them, even if you feel like they're not value add. First, just join them just so that you can learn how things are done. That way you can have a better context when you get to that point where you're able to share your feedback. So trying to just follow the way you found the things, unless you've been asked to really come and overhaul everything and change things from the get-go, then you can have at it. But if you're joining a team that's already there, even though you're probably the overall manager or product manager, or you're the tech lead or something, you want to gently focus on understanding how things are done, attend all the meetings, participate as needed, and that will help for you to find the best way to apply any suggestions for changes and improvements. And another thing is, do not ignore any invitations to go out to lunch or to have virtual one-on-ones for introductions and things, because this is a way that people are looking to connect with you and learn more about you and size you. So if people are reaching out to you and maybe you're in the same city and they want to meet up for lunch, ensure that you can accept those according to your schedule, but do not decline, because then you will be seen as somebody who's not trying to be collaborative, that you just want to stand by yourself and you don't view yourself as being part of the team. So again, do not decline invitations for lunches and introduction Zoom calls and all that, because those are things that will actually help you to learn the intricacies of the dynamics on the team and also for the project. Another thing not to do is to be the loudest voice in the room from the get-go. While you may have a laundry list of ideas and suggestions and opinions that you want to put forth, be measured and just be mindful of the temperature in the room, so that if the team tends to be more on the quiet side, you can just maybe share one or two ideas per session. That way you don't overwhelm them and you don't come like a bomb. You want to also read the room, understand how things are going, so that you know how to go through your list. Some of these things may not even be worth even addressing at all, whereas there are others that are more critical that you want to focus on. So again, don't be the loudest voice in the room from the get-go. You can slowly just ramp up over time until people get used to you, and then that's when you can get to your normal level. Another thing that you should not do at all is do not gossip about any team members or about any stakeholders to anybody, even if it's a way of you warming up to the team and having small talk. Refrain from gossip because you do not know the dynamics in the projects or in the team. And especially if you're working remotely, you definitely haven't met most of these people in person. So you don't understand the interactions and, the different structure and the metrics that you're working in fully to be able to know who you're speaking to and the level of details they're trying to share. So refrain from gossip. Another thing that you should not do is do not overwork yourself. You want to make sure that if there is a work schedule that's been set in terms of starting and end time, just follow that and just go with the flow. Obviously, there may be some adjustments because in different time zones and the different working schedule that the team has set up, but more and more, you don't need to go and overextend yourself and work 16-hour days or 20-hour days just to show what you can do and the value you can add. Just still work within the time frame that you've agreed on the team, but obviously, you can be more efficient with the time, given your experience and expertise that you bring to the table, and you'll be able to maybe complete more things in a shorter period of time. So then you're able to accomplish more objectives. So again, there's no need for you to overextend yourself because you do not want to set the wrong expectations that you're going to be working, overtime all the time. So no need to impress to that level. But again, that differs from culture to culture. I know for Asian culture, at least in Singapore, I've seen people that usually overextend themselves, and sometimes it's viewed as a good thing and they see that you're very committed. Whereas I think in the European cultures, in the US, most of the time, everybody really likes to respect the time frame that it's been set because they want to have a work-life balance. They don't want to stuck to online on the computer for the full duration of their day. So again, gauge those dynamics, but the best way to go about it, start with the initial time frame that has been set for the team. So don't overextend yourself. So now that you have these practical tools on how to navigate your first 90 days, you may be wondering, what about my specific role? How's the best way for me to stand out? So if that's the case, watch this video next, where I'm going to walk you through the roles and responsibilities of a product owner and how you can be able to navigate that as a remote product owner. So watch this video next, and I'll see you there.